And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Not too many headlines, not many signings anyway since the end of the winter meetings yesterday, but we do have some new rumors all centered around the New York Yankees primarily. A few other teams have also come about because of the New York Mets and the Juan Soto sweepstakes, how that ultimately turned out, as well as the Houston Astros making Kyle Tucker available. All that and more available next here at the Upside. Alrighty, the New York Yankees seem to be the most active team right now on the market. They're trying to address the needs left by Juan Soto leaving to go to the New York Mets, and they've already done a nice job. They've already brought back a bullpen arm in Luis Loaizaga, and then you also have the biggest signing that they've done, Max Fried, getting 8 years, $218 million to go to New York. Now, he did have a couple of 7-year offers on the table. Texas Rangers were in there at 7 for $190. A little bit of deferrals on the back end there. More of a backloaded contract overall, but still would have been a great contract for Fried. But sounds like he took that deal to New York and said, "Hey, if you really want me to put more money out there, give me an extra year." And that's exactly what the Yankees did. That's not something they've done really since the Hal Steinbrenner era. So good on them for going that extra mile to be able to get him done. So congratulations to Max Fried and the Yankees as far as getting step one of their offseason complete. But now they have to address the holes in their lineup. Juan Soto was such an impactful player for them, it's going to take more than just one guy to replace him. And even if they had just brought back Juan Soto, there was still more work to do. They had to address their infield defense, third base, first base, what we're going to do with those. Rotation was addressed with Max Fried here. And then, of course, the bullpen. Those are all big question marks for the New York Yankees this offseason. They already did a great job by bringing in Fried. Now they're being connected to both Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman, both from the Houston Astros. Bregman, of course, on the free agent market. And then you get Tucker on the trade block anyway. Bregman, I think, is the easier to get. Why? Because he's a free agent and you don't only have to give up money to be able to bring him in. Prospects, capital, possibly even losing him in free agency. Those are all possibilities here with Kyle Tucker. Now, it's going to take a significant package. What I mean by that is a very significant package for a one-year guy. I mean, he's going to go into free agency and he's going to do exactly what Juan Soto just did with the New York Yankees. He's going to look for the top dollar in free agency next year. So I'm a little bit surprised the Yankees are willing to dip their toe back into that market. Not saying that they shouldn't be interested in Kyle Tucker. I'm just saying maybe they should be investing their money on the free agent market rather than losing a guy in free agency next year if he decides, hey, I'd rather go play on the West Coast and go to the San Francisco Giants. That's very much in play. Other teams have heavy interest in there, as well as the Chicago Cubs, the Philadelphia Phillies, Toronto Blue Jays, Boston Red Sox, have all kicked the tires on Kyle Tucker. I'm sure most of the league has at least thought about the idea of bringing in Kyle Tucker. He is a star. The bigger question for them once he gets to your team, are you going to be able to re-sign him? And what kind of contract is he going to be looking for? I would expect a contract in the neighborhood of 9, 10 years, $300 million, maybe even bordering on $400 million. MLB Network did a great job comparing his contract, what he could possibly get, to the guys that have recently signed. He was compared favorably to guys like Corey Seager, Mookie Betts, even Juan Soto to a certain extent. But those are the types of contracts that he's going to be compared against. So you're not going to be able to keep Kyle Tucker if you're Houston on a 5-year, $200 million deal. I don't think there's a contract that he would sign that would be that small. I think he's going to do very well in free agency, and we'll see where he goes. Welcome in Vinny, Terry, Mark, Brianna. Really appreciate you joining us once again. Anything on the Mets? Well, they're going to have the news conference for Juan Soto here shortly. We'll have a short video today. That way, those of you who are Mets fans can check that video out. But the Mets are still trying to add some starting pitching. They're still connected to both Burns and Sean Manaea. Seems like their preference is Sean Manaea at this point. Terry, Yankees need Tucker and Bellinger. I think they need multiple bats. Now, whether they get Bregman, and Walker, or if they go Bellinger, those are all up in the air, but they do need to add a couple of significant bats. Welcome in, Mark. Welcome in, Brianna. Appreciate you joining us once again. As far as the Tucker trade talks that center around both the Chicago Cubs and the New York Yankees, most notably, we've already heard of a couple of offers getting out there, with the Cubs offering Seiyu Suzuki as well as Isaac Paredes and a possible first-round pick. That being the one sticking point there. The pick being the guy they chose in 2022 or the guy they chose in 2023. So it's going to be a significant haul going back for 1 year of Kyle Tucker. He's a great player, don't get me wrong, but my goodness, I mean, that's a huge package for just 1 year of any player, no matter how good he is. We just saw how good of a deal we saw for Juan Soto last year, going from the Padres to the Yankees for 1 year. How well did that work out for the Yankees? Not only did you give up 5 pieces, a long-term starter out of your rotation, now you've already lost all that prospect capital. Now you have nothing to show for it because Juan Soto left for the crosstown rival New York Mets. Could be a scary situation for teams that trade for Kyle Tucker and then ultimately could end up with nothing after 1 year. If I'm the Cubs, if I'm the Yankees, I would look elsewhere. I would look towards free agency, but he's going to get traded at some point this offseason somewhere. Somebody is going to overpay, and it sounds like it very likely is going to be one of the Cubs or the Yankees. Now, as far as the offer from the New York Yankees, it centers around Luis Gil. Sounds like the Astros are making sure they try to maximize this offer to include a guy like Spencer Jones, a guy that's been compared favorably to Aaron Judge from other prospect evaluators. I don't see it. I think his numbers are a little bit dubious when you look at the minor leagues. I think he's still going to be a good player, but to compare him to probably one of the top 5 players in the game is a lot of pressure for a guy who hasn't had any experience at the major league level. And so for me, the starting pitcher would already be a big ask. To add in Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez, I think would be a non-starter for me. But they're going to overpay. It's going to take a lot to get Kyle Tucker, and I think the Yankees are going to be one of the top 2 finishers for Kyle Tucker. I would just rather go into free agency to be able to get something like that done. As for the Bellinger market, the news this morning from John Heyman is that the New York Yankees are now considered the clear frontrunner and that they have made progress on talks to acquire Cody Bellinger from the Chicago Cubs. Now, not sure if this will go hand in hand with them getting as Kyle Tucker in addition to, or if this is the Cubs adding prospects by trading away Bellinger that they then can flip on to Houston in a Kyle Tucker deal. All of those options are still on the table, but it's curious to note that the Yankees, not the Mariners, are stepping out a little bit here to try to get Cody Bellinger. I thought they still would have gone more of the free agency route. Again, you don't have to give up prospects to sign free agents, and when you look at the free agent class, Bregman's a great option at third base. Gives you similar production during the regular season as Kyle Tucker. And, oh, by the way, is a far better playoff performer than Kyle Tucker has been the last few years. That's a big thing if I'm the New York Yankees trying to overcome the mountain, win the World Series. You have to be able to perform in October. Juan Soto absolutely crushed it in October this year. That's why he signed such a massive deal. Kyle Tucker has not performed the last couple of years once they got to October. And, I think Alex Bregman would just be a better fit both financially right now as well as the trade market. I just think the cost to bring in Kyle Tucker is going to be too much, and I'd rather sign him at a free agency next year. But Alex Bregman would be my number one option if I'm the Yankees right now on the free agent market. My number two guy would probably be Christian Walker. They need to add a first baseman. I think he'd be a great fit there. Corner outfield has been another sticking point for them. They haven't been connected too much to Anthony Santander. Seems like they've cooled a little bit on his market, but they're looking at Teoscar Hernandez as well as the Dodgers are looking at him. Wouldn't be surprised to see him go to either one of those two teams. Speaking of Alex Bregman and Teoscar Hernandez, there are more teams in the mix there. Bregman has a big suitor there in Boston. He'd be a great fit there at third base with Rafi Devers possibly moving over to first. But it's not just including those two teams. We're talking about the Blue Jays that have interest. Phillies have interest as well. His market is moving along. It sounds like he might be the next big free agent that does move. The other top free agent who could move in the next 24 to 48 hours sounds like Corbin Burnes. The favorite, according to Mark Feinsand yesterday, was the Toronto Blue Jays were in front. Well, now we're getting reports from Joel Sherman and John Heyman basically saying that the favorite now is considered to be the San Francisco Giants. That's the team that's been negotiating with him the longest, and they weren't waiting on Juan Soto to try to lure Corbin Burnes there. Remember, Burnes has a lot of ties to that San Francisco Bay Area, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we do see him come to an agreement, and what a turnaround this would mark for that San Francisco Giants organization. They go from 5 years of absolute nothingness, with Farhan Zaidi, one good year that ultimately was surrounded by 4 other years of just inadequate play on the field, no superstars in that lineup, being the consolation prize for any free agent who doesn't get the top dollar on the market, would then sign late in free agency on a 1 year plus an option. Think Carlos Rodon, Kevin Gausman, Blake Snell is the most recent iteration of that. They have to take the scraps off of another team, Robbie Ray from the Seattle Mariners, after the money there is sunk. And so they just try to capture something and see if Robbie Ray can get back to being the player he was. And then we could see Robbie Ray possibly being moved. Now with Buster Posing in charge there, I really like the way this team is going to be looking going forward. They make a big opening statement with Willy Adames, 7 years, 182, and I don't think they're going to be done. If, say, they add Corbin Burnes, they may trade Doval out of the bullpen to rebuild some of their prospect capital, maybe even trade off Liriano since they have now signed their long-term answer at shortstop. Seems like they no longer believe in him as a long-term answer for their organization. They could certainly do a little bit of buying and selling this year. I don't think they're going to be a contender to win the division, but this season at least. But next year, they're going to have even more money to spend, and Kyle Tucker will be a free agent, along with several other guys, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., all guys who could make a difference on that team. Bregman could be a possibility, but I haven't heard their name, or the Giants' name, in connection with Bregman too much this offseason. But there are tons of different avenues now open to the Giants that never were with Farhan Zaidi in charge. Now, speaking of kind of failed GM experiences, the Giants had one with Farhan Zaidi. I really like the change with Buster Posey. Another one we've got to discuss now has got to be Elias from the Baltimore Orioles. My goodness, how many times do we have to see him go into free agency, go into the winter meetings, go into the trade deadline with an absolute need for some starting pitching and say, I'm just not willing to pay the price of poker. Well, he's done the trade route a couple of times now. It didn't really work with Jack Flaherty. I get the investment. You let him go, so be it. You go out there and make the acquisition of Corbin Burnes. You still haven't spent any money in free agency to really address this, aside from bringing in a number 3-4 type starter in Zach Eflin. But for me, they need a number 1 in that rotation. The top one on the market is Corbin Burnes, and they seem like an also-ran at this point in the efforts to sign him. They aren't even mentioned in the top 5 teams to possibly bring him in at this point. And he's the top guy that's out there. You have a rotation that doesn't have a number 1 or 2 in there. You're looking at the possibility of offloading more prospects for a guy who might leave in free agency. Once again, at a certain point, you have to invest dollars in that rotation. Either that or just go really young with that rotation and hope you get lucky. And that, to me, is a red flag when I look at that organization. They've done a great job. Elias specifically has done a fantastic job drafting, developing talent, getting his minor leagues in order. But as far as a general manager handling the major league club, leaves a lot to be desired. This is the one chance they have to capitalize on Adley Rutschman. And I can't believe the national media hasn't caught up on this, that they're missing a golden opportunity here with the Yankees taking a hit by losing Juan Soto, by the Red Sox continuing to not spend. Sure, they made the trade of Garrett Crochet, but they still haven't spent as of yet in free agency. The Blue Jays look like they're one more season away from going into a complete and total rebuild. The Rays had injury issues last year, and sure, they're still going to be the Rays around 500 every year. But you have a very good and young up-and-coming team that's cheap. Why are we not investing in free agency to capitalize on those cheap, high-value contracts? How long are you expecting Adley Rutschman to be the premium offensive piece behind the plate before you have to offload him to a first base DH type role because he can no longer play behind the plate every single day and maintain his health and effectiveness? Why are we not capitalizing on this, and why is the national media not holding Elias and that front office accountable for the inability to develop a pitching staff, a number 1 and 2 starter, or invest in free agency to do so? I want those answers if I'm an Orioles fan. That's the answers I need to have before we even begin to discuss what kind of World Series favorite they're going to be, because their offense is good. They brought in Tyler O'Neill. They saved a little bit of money because they didn't bring back Santander. Great. Use that saved money, spend it on Burns. You at least lock up your number 1. Even if you just kept the status quo, you still were going to need some more starting pitching there in Baltimore. And it ultimately turns out they're going to lose starting pitching here and have a 3-4 type starter as their number 1 in any postseason series. That's completely unacceptable with the way this team is currently built. They need to go out there and get a number 1, and for them to have one of their own, a guy they traded for, invested in prospect capital, not be willing to sign him to a long-term deal, a Cy Young caliber pitcher with no clear injury red flags or anything of that sort. He's not even asking for, above Jacob deGrom money. So what is the problem? And it sounds like Orioles ownership is giving him the green light to go ahead and spend the money. Now, sure, they might not be willing to go, say, $40+ million per year on a starting pitcher. Burns isn't asking for that. The market for Burns sounds like it's in the 7 for 240 range, 8 for 240 range. That's beneath that $40 million threshold. And so I would like some answers if I'm a member of the Baltimore Orioles fan base. That's where my bugaboo is with that team. They have a great offense. They have no starting pitching. Bullpen has got a little bit of a question mark as well with Bautista coming back. Kimbrel didn't work out last year, obviously. They need to address that area as well. But pitching staff, pitching rotation specifically, a 1 and 2, they absolutely need to address. Say they lose Burns, the best option out there is on the trade market in Dylan Cease, and then you're left with guys like Sean Manaea, Andrew Heaney, Nick Pivetta. None of those guys I would pick as a number 1 in a rotation. Manaea very well could be in a year, but right now I think he's more solidified as a number 2 in a rotation. The Mets already have Senga as their 1. Manaea would be their number 2 in that rotation. Manaea is also having a lot of interest from other teams that need starting pitchers, like the Toronto Blue Jays, like the Boston Red Sox. Red Sox, I think you'd be a 1A and 1B there with Crochet. But for me, that Baltimore Orioles team needs some starting pitching. Let us know in the comment section what you think of their inability to acquire some starting pitching. Let's see here. Platypus, appreciate you joining us. Yankees didn't really give up anything for Soto. King is a free agent next year, and they didn't miss him. Everyone else in the deal is not good. They gave up 5 pieces. 5. And they weren't nothing. I'll put it that way. King is already a good starting pitcher there for the Padres. And yes, they had to give up pieces of their organization to do so. They had to get a little worse at the catcher spot with the Higashioka going the other way as well. And so to say they didn't give up anything for Soto is a little bit misleading there. They did give up prospects, and now they lose them for nothing in free agency. That's where the nothing issue comes from. They're getting a little bit of draft pick compensation, but come on, man. We're talking about Juan Soto. How perfect of a fit he was with Aaron Judge. He was absolutely perfect in that lineup. Now, the money made it. You could make the argument it might be better just to disperse it a little bit differently with Max Fried, with Bregman, whoever they ultimately might bring in. The total value of those deals might ultimately be less than what they spend on Soto. But the average annual value is going to be higher. You're already spending $27 on Fried. Juan Soto is going to be making $51-ish million with the New York Mets. You're already at 27 with Fried. Say you bring in Bregman, that's going to be, say, we'll call it $25 to $30 million. You're already in that $47-ish million range with those two guys, and you still need to add another bat to equal the impact, or at least get close to equaling the impact of the loss that is felt by Juan Soto no longer being there. So to say that they lost him for nothing and gave up nothing for him, one of the two is true, one of the two is not. I'll let you guess which one is true. Hobbit. Bifford to Hobbit. Okay. Lord of the Rings fan. I like that name. Okay. Mets rule New York City. Well, they certainly own the headlines so far. Now they got to prove it on paper. They got to the NLCS last year. It's going to be a very difficult National League Championship Series again if they get that far. The Dodgers are still considered the favorite as far as I'm concerned in the National League. They have a great 1, 2, 3, and 4 in their rotation, and they could have a 5th with Hiroki Sasaki. They have a great few bats in their lineup, of course, with Betts, Freeman, and Ohtani, and they're going to add more here. Do not be surprised if they get another corner outfielder like Teoscar Hernandez. I think that'd be a great fit. They seem to be out on Nolan Arenado, but until Arenado is traded, I'll believe it when I see it when they're completely out on a guy. If there's an opportunity for them to get him for a song, they absolutely will. But there are 6 teams that he's supposedly waived his no trade for. One of them that is not included there yet is the New York Yankees. They haven't really discussed too much yet with the St. Louis Cardinals. What's the latest on Corbin Burnes? Welcome in, Certified Flamingo. Appreciate you joining us. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Gained like 30 of you guys in the last few days alone of our winter meetings coverage, so really appreciate it. But what's the latest on Burnes? It sounds like the favorite as of this morning, according to Joel Sherman and John Heyman, is that the San Francisco Giants are the clear frontrunner. Yesterday, according to Feinsand, it was the Blue Jays, so that's kind of the top 2 teams in the market for him. Red Sox were said to be in and then out and then in again after losing Max Fried to the New York Yankees. Sounds like they still want to add another starting pitcher. I wonder if they just bring back Pivetta, though, rather than spending the money on a Corbin Burnes. Welcome in, John. Appreciate you for joining us. Really disappointed in the Orioles. Seriously, every year, the rumors I read, the owner gave Elias the okay to spend. I don't know what's wrong with Elias, shaking my head. I don't know either, and I'm sure that he has restraints on that money that he has the ability to spend. I'm sure the owner came to him and said, hey, go ahead and spend it, but make sure you don't spend too much. Something along those lines. I'm sure he would still be fine with spending $30+ million on Corbin Burnes. 40+ they might have a little bit of an issue, but his market isn't at that. It should not be a problem for them to be able to retain Corbin Burnes. And maybe it's just an unwillingness to go on a long-term deal for a starting pitcher. Maybe that's what he sees as the problem. Maybe he's one of those, newer baseball minds that thinks, constantly replenishing your farm system and having young guys in that rotation is the way to go. And that's one school of thought. But when you don't have anybody in that rotation, after using that method, if that's what his method is, to not have anybody at the 1 or 2 spot in that rotation, when you have a roster that is built to win now, that is built for you to spend money in free agency while these contracts are so cheap for Henderson, Rutschman, Holiday's going to be there as well. Cowser was a Rookie of the Year candidate. They have money to spend. This is the time for them to do so, and for them to not bring back Corbin Burnes if they don't re-sign him is an absolute travesty, and I want to hear it from y'all Orioles fans. Welcome in, Charles. Healthy Braves team better than Mets? I mean, Acuna is a great player, don't get me wrong. I would say on paper right now, I would still prefer the Mets organization the way they're currently set up. Until the Braves add another starting pitcher, until the Braves add a corner outfielder, until the Braves add some pieces to that bullpen. Now, the top 4 teams on the National League side go in order like this for me. Dodgers 1. I would probably say the second best team is one of the Phillies or Mets, and then the 4th best team would be the Braves, clearly, and then the Padres 5th. Braves could jump into that argument, though, if they add a number 5 starter to that rotation, like Nathan Eovaldi, who went to Texas. They were in there for him. But they need to address that starting spot, and then they need to address a corner outfielder and some bullpen. Those are still opportunities for them to improve. I like what the Mets have done. They are not done yet either. They're still looking to add to their rotation. They're still looking to add a first baseman and some bullpen arms, and could even use another bat off the bench or even a third baseman. Those are all possibilities for both of those 2 teams to improve, but I still have the Dodgers ahead of everyone on the National League side. Welcome in, Nicholas. Acuna gets hurt as much as Trout. I wouldn't say as much as Trout, but I'd say his injuries are devastating when they do happen. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a injury-prone thing. It's just he has really bad injury luck. And, Acuna, now that he's had a couple of season-ending injuries in his career already, you got to have that caveat with him going forward. Is he going to be able to stay healthy for 162? Probably not. But if you can get 130 to 150, it's still an incredibly cheap, valuable contract for the Braves. I'd still say he's better than Trout, though, at this time. Trout has kind of regressed over the last 2 years and is kind of a little bit better than a league average player. Far cry from being the best player in baseball anymore. What's up with the Yankees talks for Tucker? They are very much in there. They sound very desperate. Luis Gil is already in the package. It sounds like they're willing to offer, smaller pieces. Ben Rice, Hampton anyway, out of their prospect pool. But it sounds like the Astros are sticking for either Jason Dominguez or Spencer Jones in addition to that package. It's a massive overpay for 1 year of a free agent, or of a 1 year guy heading into free agency. But if you want a star player like Tucker, it sounds like that's where the market is going to be, especially with the Cubs offering a very similar, overly valuable offer going to Houston. Houston's going to be able to pivot really well off of Kyle Tucker. Nice work here by Dana Brown developing that market at the winter meetings and getting a real frenzy around his guy. I think Valdez is going to stay in Houston. If the Orioles spend right now, they won't be able to sign all those great kids they have. Well, we're still early on. Say Burns signs for $35 million for 7-8 years, whatever the case may be. Might very well get to that number, as the market stands right now. I mean, O'Neill comes off the books in 3 years. They're not going to keep a lot of these other pieces around on this roster. I'm sure they could do what Houston is going to do with Tucker and flip one of their guys to allow them to have younger pieces on that roster. They're not going to spend a lot of money at catcher once Rushman has to move to first base. They have money to spend. They're not going to have, say, $230 million to spend every single year on their payroll, but they do have enough to where they can field a very good team for, say, 180 to 220. I think that's a very reasonable consideration. They're not going to be into the tax, and so that should be something the Orioles are comfortable doing with the payroll that they're going to have. They're going to make a lot of money with the success that team makes, plus they're going to be profitable even at that number. So say they lose before they even get to the postseason. They're still going to be profitable. There's no reason to say that they don't have the money. Baseball is doing very well financially right now. We're seeing it with the free agent contracts, and they're only going to continue to go up. I would really like to see the Orioles address their starting rotation. And like I said, if they don't, they absolutely should be held accountable for making the trades to bring in some big-time pieces and letting them walk for nothing only a year later. This is 2 straight off seasons in a row. We're going to see them lose a top-flight player in free agency, one absolutely needed piece in that starting rotation. Now, they could trade, of course, for Dylan Cease, but again, that's going right back to the well where you just had success bringing in the trade, but then are you willing to sign him to the long-term deal? Say you lose Burns in free agency here. You're willing to go out there and acquire Dylan Cease. Lower prospect capital than it would have been from the White Sox. I get that, all well and good. You bring in Dylan Cease. Are you willing right now to go ahead and sign Dylan Cease to a contract very similar to Corbin Burns in a year from now? If you're not willing to spend on Burns now, what makes us think it's going to change when Dylan Cease hits free agency? Just some food for thought. The Orioles need to address that starting rotation. Like I said, they have a number 3-4 type starter going in there as their game 1 starter in a playoff series. Zach Eflin or Grayson Rodriguez is your number 1 in that rotation. That's not a whole lot of confidence in that rotation to be able to handle things and get you through a postseason series, let alone win you a pennant or even the World Series. They have some work to do there. Welcome in, Mark. 50 people here. Absolutely. We got, 63 people with us now. Wow. Thank you guys for joining us. If you guys haven't hit that like and subscribe, please do so. Interact with our chat. Have fun with you guys talking winter meetings, some trade talk as well. TD, Tucker will get $650 million plus next year. They will pay that. Tucker ain't getting $650. This was a special time for Juan Soto to get to free agency at 26 years old. Tucker's going to be getting to free agency at 29. The length of the deal isn't going to be 15 years. It might be between 10 and 12 at most. He's going to get over $300 million. He might break $400 million if he has a postseason run in him and a season like Juan Soto just had for the New York Yankees. Given that, he's still not breaking $500 million. He's a great player, has struggled in the postseason, has some injury risks with him, at least this most recent year. He's a great player. He is a star. He compares more favorably to guys like Seager and Betts than he does to the free agency of Juan Soto. And so I would expect a deal in that $300 to $400 million range. $650, absolutely out of the question. But appreciate you guys joining us right now. If you guys are new here, hit that like and subscribe. Let's go ahead and dig into some of the other headlines around Major League Baseball right now before we kind of wrap up. We'll go over to X. Saw a few headlines anyway. Kirby Yates, I noticed his name being mentioned over the last 20-30 minutes. The reliever market might finally start to be getting unclogged. We're starting to see some movement there. The Rangers signed Jacob Webb from the Baltimore Orioles after he was non-tendered. That's a low-value contract, but we're starting to see some of the closers get some headlines out there. Specifically, Kirby Yates has been connected with the Detroit Tigers. They need some back-end bullpen help. Devin Williams has also seen his name being mentioned with the LA Dodgers, with the Texas Rangers. The New York Mets have also kicked the tires, and the Toronto Blue Jays. Tanner Scott's had his name out there over the last 24 hours as well. It sounds like we're getting some movement there. It's just a matter of which musical chair gets filled first. Does Devin Williams get traded out west to the Dodgers? I think that's very likely. Do the Rangers decide to move on from Nathaniel Lowe and acquire Bednar via trade, or make a three-team deal, send Lowe to the Yankees to solve their issues at first base, send the prospects from the Yankees to the Brewers to get Devin Williams. Devin Williams makes about $9 million. Net cost of what minus $2 million for the Rangers. They save money and still address an area of need on that roster. They made the trade for Jake Berger, who's making league minimum salary right now as a pre-arbitration guy. But Lowe is still a little bit better of a player, much better defender, of course. But they're going to use his bat. They want the power in their lineup. That's kind of clear right now. When you look at the Rangers' additions so far this offseason, Kyle Higashioka and Berger both are more power hitters than anything else right now as far as offensive pieces. So something to keep in mind with that relief market starting to get a little bit of movement there. Let's see here. There was another one I just saw. Look at this picture here from Joel Sherman as he was driving in for the winter meetings. Juan Soto in a Mets uniform. Just, wow. I like that comment somebody said about them taking over New York. I mean, not to say that they couldn't. It's a possibility, though. One other bit of news anyway. Red Sox have spoken with John Means as they continue to look for more pitching. They've talked about the possibility of a reunion for Pivetta as well. Wander Franco, we're going to go ahead and leave that one clear. We don't want anything to do with him at the moment, nor does the entire sport of baseball. Let's see. There's the news about the Tigers' interest in Kirby Yates. He was an all-star last year. Giants are considered the favorite for Burns. And I thought there was one more piece. There we go. Charlie Morton might find his way out in Atlanta. He was hoping to possibly retire after this coming season with the Atlanta Braves, but the Braves are holding him as more of a backup option. Sounds like they know that he wants to be returning as a Atlanta Brave, and so they're kind of playing a little bit of games with that one. Oh wow. There's the first picture I've seen, legitimately, with him in a Mets uniform. My goodness. That's a different sight if you're a Yankees fan. Don't throw something at the TV. That's legitimately Juan Soto in a Mets uniform. Alrighty, TD. He's 27. He'll get 12 to 13, so he's gonna at least 60 or 650 million plus. Soto opened the Pandora's box. Soto is going to be playing at the age of 26 when his contract starts with the New York Mets. Tucker is going to be 29 when his contract starts with whoever he signs in free agency. They're two very different pieces there. He will get, I believe, 10 to 12. I think more than that is out of the question at this point. But 3 to 400 million sounds about right. He's a better base runner, better defender than Juan Soto, but he's not the same hitter as Juan Soto either. Something to consider about Juan Soto there. B. Rich, any news on Rangers prospects like Leiter and like that another team might cherish? I wouldn't necessarily say the Rangers are looking to offload prospects right now. I think they were looking to offload some roster construction problems that they were having, a roster crunch anyway. Okay, Brianna, we get it. That's enough of that. But as far as, come on, knock it off. As far as the Rangers prospects anyway, they're not going to move Leiter. They're going to go with more of a youth movement at the back end of their rotation. DeGrom, Eovaldi as your 1 and 2. You're going to have probably Gray as your number 3 unless they find a taker for him to where they can sign somebody else, possibly an Andrew Heaney back in free agency. I think if all things were equal, the Rangers would prefer to have Andrew Heaney. They just prefer his stuff. Now, Gray's been great for them that he just had a toy drive there right at the end of the winter meetings as well at the ballpark. So he's very connected to the Rangers community. Not saying they want to move him, but I am saying that there is a possibility that it's not out of the question, if that makes sense. So, a 0.001 chance that the Rangers move on from John Gray in an effort to sign another starting pitcher. So, something to kind of keep your eyes on. Rick, it is being reported that the Yankees are out on Bregman. His swing does not fit at Yankee Stadium. Well, I mean, sure, they want to go for more left-handed hitters. I haven't seen any reports that say they're out yet, though. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and just send that to us. We'd really appreciate that. Red Sox, I think, are a perfect fit for him and his swing, if that's the problem there. Blue Jays are still very much interested, as well as the Phillies. Phillies' conversation centers around whether or not they're going to trade Alec Boehm or not, though. Because if they don't trade Boehm, then there's really no spot in the infield for Bregman. So they're going to have to do a trade first, or at least have something in the works before they can really promise anything to Alex Bregman. I'm sure they're just keeping their tabs on that market, saying, hey, we're fine with the numbers, all those kinds of things, but we have to create a spot for you in the lineup first. And offloading Alec Boehm is the one way that they will find easiest to do so. Cadzilla, any more news on Tucker to the Yankees or Bellinger? News this morning, anyway, on Bellinger is that the Yankees and Cubs have made progress on talks that would send Bellinger to the Yankees. They've stepped out a little bit ahead of the Mariners and are now the clear front runner to acquire Cody Bellinger. I think that would be a great get for them. Helps them at first base and center field. Gives them some options as far as how they want to go about the rest of free agency. Because if they don't want to spend at, say, Christian Walker's number, and they want to bring in Bregman, or if they want to go to Kyle Tucker, they have the flexibility now to do that because of Bellinger's ability to play either infield or outfield positions. Like the options for the Yankees here. As far as Tucker, they were already willing to give up Luis Gil for him, a good, controllable starting pitcher. The talks right now are focused on whether or not they're going to include Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez. Yankees are adamant about holding on to both of those guys, but when you consider that the Cubs have already made it clear they're willing to send Seiyu Suzuki and Paredes and possibly one of their top two or one of their picks or first round picks in the last 2 years to the Astros to be able to get it done, the Yankees might be pressed into sending out Spencer Jones in that deal. Yankees fans have been messaging me all morning about the possibility of their next coming of Aaron Judge, in their opinion at least, going to the Houston Astros and watching him in an Astros uniform. It's a very high overpay for me on both cases here. Cubs, I think, are overpaying for Tucker. I think the Yankees are going to have to pay even more. I think they're desperate enough to demonstrate the willingness to do that overpay. It's just an incredible ask for the Houston Astros for 1 year of Kyle Tucker, who clearly says, I'm going to free agency, who also has struggled in the postseason each of the last 2 years. When I say struggled, I mean absolutely zero production from Kyle Tucker in the postseason in 23, in 24, in 22, and then this year he missed, 80-plus games this year due to injury? He is a great bat. He is a star player. He's a good base runner and a pretty decent defender as well. He's not the same player as Juan Soto offensively. Stop saying that he is. He's not. He's a great offensive piece, but he's not Juan Soto. He's not quite as young as Juan Soto either when he gets to free agency. So keep those things in mind whenever he comes to free agency next year. We're going to be talking about a very high value contract, but nothing in the realm of Juan Soto. So, a team that's going to trade for him has to be comfortable with the idea of possibly losing him in free agency. And with the Yankees freshly off that defeat of losing Juan Soto to the crosstown rival New York Mets, I'm surprised at their willingness to get into another situation just like it, especially when teams are going to be very much interested in Kyle Tucker next year. The Giants are going to have money. The Blue Jays are going to have gobs of money next year. Red Sox are going to have availability if they don't add a corner outfielder this year. There's so many teams that are going to be in the market for Kyle Tucker, and now on top of that, you're willing to risk the prospects for 1 year to possibly convince him to stay? How did that convince Juan Soto stay argument work for you this time around? Oh, he really enjoys hitting in front of Aaron Judge. They, peanut butter and jelly, hand in glove. Couldn't be a better fit. 1 year is all it got you. And now you're going about Kyle Tucker here with the same fervor that you had about trying to bring in Juan Soto. I get the need to try to improve your team. Don't get me wrong. They have to improve. They need to make up for the loss of Juan Soto. But the risk here is far greater than the reward to me. And if they make the trade, hats off to them. But they better get him signed long term. They better get an extension done, because if he hits free agency and goes elsewhere, I want to hear Yankees fans come back to me and say, I apologize. I'm sorry. You were right. We shouldn't have traded for him. And now we've given up 5 prospects for Soto. We're going to give up 3 to 4 more prospects here for Tucker. And we have nothing to show for it. Zero. Nothing. Something to think about if you're a Yankees fan trying to replace Juan Soto in that lineup. I get it. You're hurting. You want to improve. But you can't go about it in ways like the Baltimore Orioles have struggled the last 2 years now to re-sign their own free agents and now look at their starting rotation. If they don't bring back Corbin Burns, the arguments I'm telling you we should have for the Orioles front office are the exact same ones we should be having for Brian Cashman in that front office. I thought them being able to re-sign Aaron Judge gave Brian Cashman, another year or two reprieve for how poorly he had managed that team before that. He got the deal done. Hats off to him. He kept Aaron Judge. Brings in Juan Soto. The trade, whatever. You took the risk. but you knew the consequences of that risk if he left in free agency. Now not only do you give up the pieces, you got him for only 1 year. Your fans got to see how good he fit with that team. You lose the ability to re-sign Juan Soto because he decides to go to the New York Mets, and you're left with nothing. And now you're risking it all over again here for Kyle Tucker. Are we going to learn our lesson at some point, Yankees, or are we going to learn, and go about and do things a little bit differently than what has not worked for us before? Kyle Tucker's a different person than Juan Soto. He may very well re-sign there, but it's a risk you do not have to take. It's a risk that there is an answer for, a solution for, that costs less and could impact you better in the postseason as well. Bregman's a better postseason performer than Kyle Tucker. Christian Walker helps you defensively. Cody Bellinger, while having a significant cost, is signed for a year or two more, and is not going to cost you nearly the money of Kyle Tucker when he does hit free agency. Flexibility there with Bellinger as well. And there are other pieces that you can go out there and try to attain to help improve that bullpen on top of all of these things. And yet your top priority is bringing in a guy in Kyle Tucker who has 1 year left and has vowed to go to free agency and take top dollar. When are we going to learn our lesson, Yankees? This is not the priority they should be trying to fill. Alrighty, let's get to a few more comments of you guys. Welcome back, David. Been a while since I've seen you comment. Cespedes 2.0. I get what you're saying there. I think it's a little bit different. The overpay of the Red Sox, I suppose, is what you're referring to there. Let's see here. Got a few more comments. Joe Schoen, no, it's not David. Look at the Cubs, what the Cubs are offering. Heel for Tucker straight up is pretty fair. Pretty fair, yes. Is it going to be enough to get it done? No. I get what you're saying, Joe Schoen. But the Cubs aren't going to get him for just Isaac Paredes right now. They're offering both Paredes, Suzuki, and additional pieces in addition to that. Yankees are going to be offering Heel and a couple of other minor league pieces. They're trying to hold out on Spencer Jones. I think a fair deal for what Tucker is worth on the open market, or what he should be worth on the open market, to a team that understands he's only going to have 1 year with that team, is probably going to be, a Luis Heel, and that's it. If you're willing to give up Paredes, and that's it. I still would be questioning the move, but it would at least be a little bit more palatable. But it's not going to go for that price. Tucker's going to go for a significantly higher price. Astros are going to be the clear winner in any trade they make at this point for Kyle Tucker. And, Astros are going to kind of reinvent themselves a little bit with this trade and really might lengthen out their championship window here. Not saying they're going to be a World Series contender, but they may very well stay in the AL West championship contender. They may very well be a wild card contender here, especially when you consider the closing window. The walls were closing in on them. For Valdez, Tucker were leaving in free agency likely next year. Valdez they could re-sign. That's the one guy I think they have a chance to be able to bring back. Tucker, I don't think they have a prayer. Bregman looks like he's gone. They have Altuve. Alvarez is still there. Astros are going to be good. But the Yankees, I know you're hurting from the Juan Soto, departure going to the crosstown rival Mets. You're watching his press conference right now. But my goodness, you have to do something here, to at least keep your sanity. Not give up the entire farm for 1 year of Kyle Tucker after you just saw how that worked out for Juan Soto. Welcome, Mike. Appreciate you for joining us. Is it Heel and prospects? It is Heel and prospects. A couple of minor league guys, possibly Ben Rice, is the preferred package the Yankees are willing to offer. It sounds like the sticking point is still Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez. I don't expect them to include Dominguez, so they might be able to pry Spencer Jones out of that Yankees system. I would not be surprised if the Yankees overpaid and then some to be able to bring in Kyle Tucker at this point. I'm not saying it's a smart decision, but I am telling you as a report, that's where the market is right now for him. And if the Yankees want to get it done, that's likely what the prospect package is going to have to be. Otherwise, Seiyu Suzuki, Isaac Paredes, and a prospect probably fit the return that the Houston Astros are looking for a little bit better than what the Yankees have to offer. You're getting two major league pieces already to solve your lineup issues. Say you lose Bregman in free agency, Paredes plugs in there at third base. You plug in Suzuki in for Tucker. Now you sign Christian Walker in free agency, and you've solved your offseason needs from a position player standpoint with one trade of Kyle Tucker. That's how good of a move it is. And oh, by the way, you're getting a former first-round pick of 22 or 23 from the Chicago Cubs in return as well. Yankees are going to have to step up their offer to equal to what the Cubs are offering if they really want to bring him in. Let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit, see how many other comments we have here. Astros fan, I hope your Astros do well. I think that any type of trade they make for Tucker, it's going to work out in your favor. You would offer Jones, Heel, etc. That's what I would not do. I would not accept that trade if I'm a Yankees fan. Uh, I would understand the risks of losing Tucker in free agency, and unless I had a complete contract extension already hammered out with him, I wouldn't make the trade. And unfortunately for the Yankees, they're not even going to get that opportunity. The Cubs are willing to make that type of a move, that significant of a trade to get a star in their lineup because they don't have one right now, and they're willing to go to that number. The Yankees, if you want to go that high as far as a trade value, sure, but you're not going to get an exclusive extension window to be able to negotiate with Tucker as well. Let's see. Welcome in, NC. All right, Brianna, that's enough of the Philly stuff there. Let's see here. Trying to catch all the comments in between all these Phillies comments. I'd like the Cubs offer more since we're trying to replace Bregman. That's kind of what I would say if I'm an Astros fan. I would like the Cubs offer more than the Yankees right now because on paper you're already getting two major league productive players. An impact player in Paredes, Suzuki to a little bit lesser of an extent, but he would solve the hole left by Tucker as well. And so you don't have to go in free agency and add a third baseman. I know some Astros fans out there are saying, I guess if we lose Bregman, we can sign Jorge Polanco. Jorge Polanco is an okay player. He's not Alex Bregman. He's certainly not, Isaac Paredes either. I would say bringing in Paredes would be the top piece in return there. And then, of course, the prospect that they'd be getting as well. So I kind of like that deal. Yankees need to win now. They do. It's over. Thoughts on Randy Miller article today. Yankees are lowballing offers Astros for Tucker. Astros fans don't want him to go to the Yankees because the AL is wide open. The American League is a little bit more wide open than it has been in recent years. The loss of Juan Soto kind of opens it up even more. The Yankees were in the World Series as the American League representative, but there's so much talent on the American League side. You still have the Rangers, who I expect to be better. They bring back Eovaldi. I believe they're going to add a couple of impact relievers as well. Health is going to be better and hitting is going to be better. Mariners have a great rotation. They're going to add at least one bat. They're looking for a right-handed hitting first baseman right now. That's a little bit specific. I wonder if they have somebody in mind specifically, kind of like a Christian Walker. I haven't heard too many rumors connecting him there, but that would be a great signing for them. They need to give some protection in that lineup to Julio Rodriguez, but those are two teams just in the AL West alone that are going to be competing for the division. You go to the Central, the Guardians were great last year. They're looking to add. They made a couple of very nice trades already this offseason. You look at the AL East, it's a dogfight every single year. All of those teams could be great. A few of those teams could be absolute trash, and a couple of them are going to make the postseason no matter what you do. I look at the Orioles. They have a great offense. They're not going to do anything once they get to October, though, if they don't address that starting staff. The Yankees have a great starting rotation. They need to address that lineup. They will. The Boston Red Sox have a very good young and up-and-coming roster. They were a little bit under they were under last year as far as what I was expecting them to do. I wasn't expecting them to win the division, but their win total was a little bit lower than what I thought. And even though they improved, I think there's more room for growth there, and they're going to have Roman Anthony breaking through the big leagues this year. They brought in Garrett Crochet. They're going to be right there as far as one of the wild card contenders there. So the American League, while it is wide open, there's a lot of competition there. Royals are significantly better than they have been at any point in the last probably 8 years now, since they basically went to the World Series back in 2015, I believe it was. Probably their most competitive team, and they're continuing to add. Tigers look very good. They're still in there supposedly for Alex Bregman. What a move that would be for them. I wouldn't sleep on the possibility of them being able to convince Bregman to go there, mainly because A.J. Hinch is their manager there. He has a connection with the Houston Astros, time there, of course. I think the Javi Baez deal they view as a complete sunk cost at this point, and they're going to just eat that money at this point. So if they can bring in a guy like Alex Bregman to give them a little bit better production, I say a little bit, a lot better production than what Javi Baez has been able to give them, would really give them a nice jump to that lineup. They've already made one addition to that rotation. They're looking to bring in Kirby Yates on the back end. They're still looking for some offensive upgrades. Not saying that the Tigers are the favorite, but I wouldn't sleep on them being in that market still. Even all this time that has passed since the end of the season to now, the Tigers are still one of the final 3 or 4 teams in the market for Bregman. You would offer Heel and maybe Pereira, yes, but again, the market has moved past that. The Yankees aren't going to get him if that's all you're going to offer. Spencer Jones' ceiling is Kyle Tucker. Maybe. I wonder if he's actually going to hit that promotion, though, or even if he's ever going to hit that ceiling, though. Tucker is the only one I'm trading for Jones and Heel. I mean, unless Tucker gives them some assurances that he's going to sign long term, I still wouldn't do the trade. But I get the desperation from Yankees fans and the Yankees front office. He is a star player. Cubs are willing to go to that number. So if you want him this year and not have to wait a year to get him in free agency, you're going to have to pay the piper to get him. We'll see where he goes. Bryce 22, welcome in. Appreciate you for joining us. We have like 90 of you guys with us right now. If you guys are new here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Tucker is not a Boris client. True. Terry, Jones needs to go too. He would have to go in that trade for Kyle Tucker. That seems to be where the market is right now. If the Yankees want to be able to bring him in, you're going to have to pay the piper. Heel plus is what it's going to take, and I think it's going to take Heel Jones plus to be able to ultimately get it done. Jones, Yankees are trading for Bellinger and Tucker. Watch. Well, that's their headlines right now. They are the front runner now for Cody Bellinger. In case you guys missed the top of the show, the Yankees and Cubs this morning have moved forward a little bit in some talks. Their talks have progressed. According to John Heyman, they are now the clear front runner for Cody Bellinger. Mariners were thought to be in there as well. They're still in there, but it sounds like the Yankees might be the high bidder right now for Bellinger. I wonder if that deal gets done before the weekend. Remember, we'll be live again tonight, recapping the entire winter meetings, the trades, the signings, and then we'll break down what happens the rest of this afternoon and what to look forward to the rest of the week. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Join us tonight for that one as well. Let's see, trying to keep up with some of these comments here. No, I'm not a Yankees fan. True. Astros fans think Yankees prospects are overrated. I think that every other team thinks another team's prospects are overrated. I get it. So let's try not to poo-poo on prospects. I mean, they haven't even made it to the big leagues yet. Who knows what one person says is true versus what another person they think says is true. So, we'll see what these guys actually turn out to be once they hit the big league level. David, most Yankees fans complain about us being old when they say trade all your prospects. And then say trade all your prospects. I mean, the Astros are a little bit older. It's time for them to turn the page, and I think a trade of Kyle Tucker, is something that looks like it's going to turn the page better than I thought ever possible. I mean, look at the offers they're getting. Incredible offers for Kyle Tucker. If that's what they're getting for Tucker, I wonder what they would get for Valdez via trade. I would try to hold on to him because I think he might be the one guy they might be able to re-sign out of this group of core Astros players. But if they decide to turn the page entirely, maybe once they get Tucker done, then they start floating Framber Valdez more effectively, possibly see a signing of Christian Walker, a player they've been connected to quite a bit. And we'll see, where these players ultimately end up. But thank you guys for joining us today. What do you think about Cody Bellinger to the Yankees? I actually like that move quite a bit for them. I think it solves their first base center field option there. I think it gives them a good left-handed hitter in a Yankees ballpark that is made for left-handed hitters. While Christian Walker, I think, would be a better player overall for them. I think the offense might be a little higher from Cody Bellinger, and they need some offensive production. Defense is going to be a premium on the left side of that infield, so I would be looking for an upgrade there. They haven't really talked to the St. Louis Cardinals yet about Nolan Arenado. If they're not viewing Alex Bregman as a good fit for them long term, maybe they go that route for a third baseman. Yankees pitching is top notch. I would say they're in the top 5 right now in the American League as far as a rotation. For me, though, I still like that Mariners rotation just a little bit more. Can't wait to see Martian this year. I think everybody's in that same boat with you, David. Bellinger, you like for the Yankees? I do as well. Heel and Jones. I agree too. An outfield of Tucker, Bellinger, and Judge would be nice. Welcome in, CCA. Appreciate you joining us for the first time. If you guys are new here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Got about 90 of you guys with us right now. So be sure to join us and enjoy some winter meetings talk. We'll go over a recap tonight and then hopefully break down all the latest. We might get a Bellinger trade, a signing of Bregman or Burns tonight as well. That's some things that we're keeping our eyes out for right now. But an outfield of Tucker, Bellinger, and Judge, that would be one of the best outfields in the game. I couldn't argue with you there. But let's kind of just look over just a couple of other signings, see if anything else has happened today since we've been on the air. I know Soto is going through there's his putting on the jersey. Struggling with it just like you see every year. Soto says he was impressed by the Mets' vision that they are trying to build a dynasty. I would agree there. I think Cohen is trying to build a dynasty there with the Mets. Getting Juan Soto is a great step to get that accomplished. Not too many headlines outside of that. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Let's go ahead and head over to MLB Trade Rumors just to see if anything else is popping off at the moment. Rays make their signing of Danny Jansen official. Let's see. Kind of getting some more of these deals put across the finish line. Welcome in, Mr. Wind. The Cubs have to let their rookies play because Matt Shaw is great, and ONC and the Cubs have the best farm systems. Cubs have a very good one. They're top heavy though to me, but that's all about what it takes to get to the major leagues. You have to have one or two guys that can break through and show success at the major league level, and I think the Cubs have a couple of pieces that could really do that. I really like some of the upper levels of their minor league system right now. We'll see what they decide to give up for Kyle Tucker if they get that deal done. Who they bring in for Cody Bellinger, who they trade Suzuki to if they don't get a deal done for Tucker. All of those are irons that they have in the fire right now. Dave, the reason why I don't want them to trade Spencer Jones because I feel you really like them. Okay, and Judge had the same struggles as prospects, and look how Judge turned out. I mean, it's a lot of pressure to compare Spencer Jones to Aaron Judge, and Yankees fans have been doing that ever since he's been since he first got the comparison to Aaron Judge. But to me, it's still a prospect. All you can really hope for is that they're an above-average major league player. They might be a superstar at some point. I don't see that for Spencer Jones. I see him as more of a Nathaniel Lowe type player as far as impact when he gets to the major leagues. I don't see him as a Vlad Guerrero Jr. or a player that impacts the level as far as a top 5 player in the game like Aaron Judge. That's a lot of pressure to put on a young guy. Now, could he reach that? Absolutely. More power to him if he's able to. But to expect that out of a prospect is a lot to ask. So while the prospect package might be a lot for Kyle Tucker, and I wouldn't be willing to offer it, I get where the market's at for Tucker, and that's where it's going. And if you want to get the guy, the Kyle Tucker in your roster right now, it's going to require that to get it done. So as much as I'm not a fan of it, Yankees, if you want Kyle Tucker, it's going to require Heel, Jones, plus to be able to get the deal done. Thank you guys for joining us today. If you guys want to hit that like and subscribe, we'll head over and do a couple of trades real quick and just see what it would take. Let's do the Yankees and Astros, since that's the one everybody's talking about right now with Kyle Tucker. What would it take to get him? We'll go with the Astros first so you guys can see his value. Tucker, with 1 year left, has about 31 as far as value here. Let me close that. Let me pull up the Yankees here. That way you guys can kind of see the value here. 31 for Kyle Tucker. What is it going to take from the Yankees? Look at the value. Heel is already close to Tucker's value right off the top. Just right there. Just so you guys know what would be pretty close to equal value, just in value of the player and the contract, the impact to their team. Now you're going into the market. You have a very competitive market for them. The Cubs are willing to overpay, and so you're going to have to overpay if you're the Yankees. Let's say you throw Spencer Jones in there. Look at the value already with just those two. 48 to 31. It's not just me saying it's an overpay. It's an overpay according to them as well. And it's not just going to take those two pieces. It sounds like they're willing to include Hampton in this one as well. Chase Hampton, 22-year-old starting pitcher. Now look at the deal. It's almost double the value. And look at the long-term contracts or long-term pieces you're giving up. You're giving up all control of Spencer Jones, 6+ years of control. Luis Heel, you're giving up 4 years of control. With Hampton, you're giving up another 6 years of control for 1 year of Kyle Tucker, who said he wants to go to free agency already. He's going to go into free agency and take the best offer. Yankees may very well have that best offer. He may love his time there in New York. But we just saw what happened with Juan Soto. You trade 5 pieces for him. He sticks around, fits hand in glove, says he loves playing in New York, loves being a teammate with Aaron Judge. He and Aaron Judge get along. You think you have a real chance to sign him. He may even take a discount to go with the Yankees. Did he take a discount? No. He signed for 15 for $765 with a crosstown rival, New York Mets. I'm not saying that the Yankees didn't have a great offer. The Mets offer was just a little bit better, and it sounds like he just wanted to play with the New York Mets. He had been intrigued with them for a couple of years, ever since the trade deadline when he was originally a member of the Washington Nationals. Before he even went to the Padres, he was intrigued by the Mets. They need to realize that this is a massive overpay, and as long as they're comfortable, willing to pay this overpay price and still lose him in free agency, okay, I guess, but that's not good, sound management of an organization. And this has continually been the issue for Brian Cashman. Remember, before Aaron Judge, if they had lost Aaron Judge, I think Brian Cashman would have been fired by the trade deadline the following year. He had been performing that poorly in his role. They retain Aaron Judge. I told you at the time he'd probably get a 1.5-year runway, at least with what he's been able to do to retain Aaron Judge, even if it wasn't his job or what he did specifically that kept him, and it was Hal Steinbrenner who convinced him to stay with the Yankees. Cashman was safe for another 1.5 years. What have they done since? Well, they did a great job making the trade for Juan Soto. They invested a lot to be able to bring him in. They get to the World Series this past year, and again, a great job there. But now we're left with Juan Soto with a crosstown rival, New York Mets. He doesn't get the job done as far as being able to re-sign Juan Soto. Now he's going to go back to what he's done before, and it looks like he's going to overpay for another guy who might leave in free agency a year from now. His issue before was that he went continually with slug-first guys. Tucker is definitely more than just a slug type of outfielder, better base runner, better defender. So that in that regard, it's at least a little bit better than what we had seen before Aaron Judge signed as far as the track record for Brian Cashman. But again, it's more of the same. Opportunities missed. Too much of an investment. But those are things I would be worrying about if I was a Yankees fan, is that we're overpaying for Kyle Tucker. You're no longer the big bad Yankees where you can overpay everybody and just live with it. You have the Guggenheim partners out there with the Dodgers who can spend at any level that the Yankees want to spend as well. Same thing with Cohen and the Mets. Those teams have the payrolls, the financial wherewithal to go to the same levels as the New York Yankees, if not exceed them. They're no longer just the only team willing to pay top prices for free agents once they get to free agency. They're no longer just going to be able to walk into the room and say, "We're the Yankees," throw on the table a briefcase full of money and say, "Sign right now." They no longer have the ability to do that. They have competition for that level of free agent. They're going to have competition next year for Kyle Tucker from the San Francisco Giants. The Cubs are going to be looking at him. I love the player. I think he's a great fit with the Yankees. I just think it's a little bit early for them to do so, and I think it's a mistake for them to make the trade. There are guys in free agency that the Yankees can go out there and sign. So, Joe, while I'm not a Yankees fan, I can still read the tea leaves and see, hey, this thing ain't going to work out. Even if you make the trade, even if you sign him long term, you're still losing several years of your future with a couple of key cogs there. Spencer Jones, if you somehow were able to get him to sign to a contract extension, it might be more worth it for me to at least to include a guy like Spencer Jones if you can guarantee me that he's going to sign in free agency or that he's going to sign a contract extension. But there's no guarantee right now. And until there is, the only way I would see this trade being worth it, just look at the screen. You take out Jones, you take out Hampton, and you get pretty close to a deal, maybe a couple of lower level prospects. But that's not where the market's at. It's going to cost more to bring in Kyle Tucker, and you got 1 year of Kyle Tucker to try to convince him to stay. And he's already said he wants to go into free agency and test his market, see how much money he can get. That tells me he wants to go to the highest bidder, and the Yankees, as long as they're the high bidder, they may win it. But again, that's a big risk that they don't have to take. They can go out into free agency right now without losing pieces off their team and sign an Alex Bregman, sign a Christian Walker. Those are options out there. Teoscar Hernandez. There's a lot of pieces out there that could help this team, maybe not necessarily at the level of Kyle Tucker, but they could get darn close to it, if not better, by bringing in an Alex Bregman. To me, Bregman is probably a better player as far as where he's at once you get to the postseason. Tucker, I think, is the better 162-game player. I think the ceiling is very high for both guys. I think the better fit is Kyle Tucker. But you're talking about the trade acquisition here. I think he's a great player. I agree with you, Joe. He's absolutely a great player. But you got to give to get, and I think you'd have to give way too much to make it worth the while of the Yankees. I'm not saying they shouldn't still consider it, but at the prices right now, I would let the Cubs be more than willing to pay that price since that offer fits the Astros better anyway. I think they'll end up taking the Cubs offer. And then you're left with the Yankees fans just like you. They're going to be going, "Oh no, we lost on Tucker now as well. We're not the Yankees anymore." Well, just wait until he gets to free agency next year. Then sign him. That's the better course of action anyway. So why are we worrying about trading for him right now if I'm the Yankees? Unless it's for something that's of commiserate value right now, I wouldn't be making the trade. I just don't. Alrighty, Yankees don't want Bregman and Teoscar. They have been connected with both. They say, as far as Bregman specifically, I think he'd be a great third baseman. They may be a little bit cooler on him than others, but the Yankees and Red Sox were a couple of the top teams in there for Bregman, as well as the Tigers and Phillies. I think there's still a very active market out there. If I had to pick a team though for Bregman, I think he probably goes to Boston. I think that's where he'd probably fit the best right now. If Bohm gets moved by the Phillies, then I think he goes to Philadelphia. But you can never rule out the Tigers with A.J. Hinch and that connection there. We've talked quite a bit about the Astros possibly dealing Kyle Tucker now. Let's go ahead and wrap up here with our Bellinger conversation. Bellinger, we actually have some news on outside of a trade package. We do get movement anyway, according to John Heyman this morning, that the Yankees have emerged as a front runner, that they've made some progress as far as what names could possibly be included, and we could see a Bellinger trade here in the next 24 to 48 hours. I was hoping we'd get it by the end of the winter meetings. That did not happen, but I think Bellinger would be a great get for them. If they sign Christian Walker, they put Bellinger in center. If they don't sign Christian Walker or add another first baseman, I think he would be their opening day first baseman. They still need to address third base or second, depending on how they want to deploy Jazz Chisholm, and then they need to add an outfielder. They need to improve that offense. They're not going to just do it with one bat. Even if they traded for a Kyle Tucker, they would still need more offensively after the loss of Juan Soto. Because remember, last year at the trade deadline, they went out there and brought in Jazz Chisholm because the rest of the team wasn't even performing at league average of standing. And so they brought in Jazz Chisholm just to kind of at least be a league average player for them. He was a little bit better than that with the Yankees, so that's why they got a little bit better return. Great on them. But they need to continue to work on that offense. They need to continue to try to, add a couple of bats. Juan Soto was such a big impact in that lineup. It's going to have to be a little bit more of a committee approach here rather than just one piece. Now, Tucker would be a gigantic piece to that lineup. I do agree, but they still need to add more, even if it's just Kyle Tucker. So we'll see where they go. A lot of trade possibilities out there. Got 80 of you guys with us right now. Thank you guys for joining us today. Hopefully we'll have a really active evening of trades tonight as well. Hoping we get some movement on Corbin Burnes. Just in case you guys are just joining us, Corbin Burnes is seen along with Alex Bregman as two of the next couple of names that could come off the market. His market seems to be down to just a few teams. Red Sox are in there to a certain extent, but it looks like the front runner is the San Francisco Giants, according to Joel Sherman and John Heyman. I would expect a deal in the 7 to 8 year range, 240, 220, somewhere in there, maybe even higher for Corbin Burnes. They already did a great job bringing in Willy Adames, 7 for 182. Really kind of solidifies their lineup for now, and they're still going to add more. I think Goldschmidt would be a good stopgap option at first base until their prospect is ready in a year or two. But that's kind of one option I'm looking at for Corbin Burnes. The Toronto Blue Jays, anyway, are the next team in there for Corbin Burnes. Last night, Mark Feinsand said they were the favorite until this morning, at least, when the Giants seem to have taken the lead, according to a couple of reporters. But the Blue Jays need to do something. They have money to burn this offseason. I think Bregman would be a great fit. I've discussed this at a few different points. Bregman going to Toronto would give them a lot of options, because if they catch fire, they make the postseason, all those kinds of things, then maybe they save their job there in Toronto, at least that front office. If they don't, and things don't work out by the trade deadline, they can easily go out and trade Vlad Guerrero Jr., trade Bo Bichette, and see if they can get something in return for those guys before they lose them for nothing in free agency. Then you have your long-term answer in Alex Bregman at short. You just slide him over from third to short, and there you go. But that's one thing I'm kind of looking for here over the next few hours, just to see if we get a deal like that done. Bellinger and Horner. Let's see. Let me see if anything else is happening. I wonder if you guys are telling me something. Let's see here. I don't see anything there. Okay. So as far as Horner, I think he's a great piece, but he is coming off of an injury season. His value is not very high right now. Cubs are going to hold on to him. There was some thought that Horner would be a trade candidate with the Brady Singer trade with the Kansas City Royals. Ultimately, they decided to go with Jonathan India. Not a surprise there. India's been healthier, and if he's able to rebuild his value, I think Horner could be a great piece for the Cubs, or a trade piece that we see at the deadline as well. Both of those are not out of the realm of possibility. David, if Judge didn't perform last postseason, why add another guy who isn't great in the playoffs? Soto did perform in the playoffs. As far as Judge, he has his ups and downs in the postseason, but they do need to add to that offense. Now, Tucker hasn't been great in the playoffs, but he's a very good 162 guy. But like I said, they need to improve that offense in more than just one way. Tucker may turn it around. He is a star player after all. He is a very good hitter. He will figure it out at some point. It's just a matter of what's it going to take to bring him in. That's the issue I have with Kyle Tucker and the New York Yankees. I'm not saying he's not a great fit. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to acquire him. I'm just saying the acquisition now, as far as timing and what it will cost, are things I would be looking to avoid right now if I'm the Yankees. Because you're looking at a team that made it to the World Series, yes, but you have more priorities than just adding for this upcoming season. You're sacrificing your future a little bit because you're not able to then use those same prospects in your system or in your roster to keep your roster a little bit cheaper and still add at the other spots where you need to improve. You're not allowed, or you're not able to have Luis Gil in that rotation. You're going to have to sign somebody else to fill that void. Those are some problems I have with the Yankees and how they're going after Kyle Tucker. I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea for them. I just think that the cost is too high and the timing is not right. I would rather go the free agency route because, again, you gain them for nothing. All it costs you to do is to add a player is money. Same thing when you look at the New York Mets. The New York Mets should not be trading for guys right now. They should be using the pocketbook of Steve Cohen to add the pieces they need to try to build a winner. That's the way they should be trying to build this team right now. They did a great job using the pocketbook to acquire prospects in a down year by offloading Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, getting some really great prospects in return for those guys when they were not very valuable on the market. They were able to gain value because he was willing to pay down a significant portion of both of their salaries. Use that same philosophy and go out there and spend in free agency if you're the New York Mets. Bring in Sean Manaea, bring in Corbin Burns, bring back Pete Alonso, trade for a Carlos Correa. All of those things are on the table because the pocketbook of Steve Cohen, using his money as the asset there to bring in those pieces, rather than going out and using the trade capital that he built up and decreasing his farm system. Luis Angel Acuna, the piece that they got from the Texas Rangers, they should not be including him in any trade offers with any team out there. I don't care who the player is. They should not be doing that. There is too many options on the free agent market right now that they should be able to solve any issue that they have on their roster via free agency. The only reason I mentioned the trade possibility of Carlos Correa because, again, Twins are trying to save money. If the Mets are willing to take on the money of Carlos Correa, it's not going to cost them a whole lot from a prospect perspective to be able to bring him in and solve their issues at third base and add another hitter to that lineup, somebody with playoff pedigree, to help push him over the top and possibly beat the Dodgers. That's the only reason why I see a trade like that being more feasible than saying going for a Logan Gilbert, for instance, of the Seattle Mariners. That's going to cost a significant prospect package if anybody were to ever even get close to prying him away from the Mariners. Whereas a guy like Carlos Correa, as long as you're willing to take on the money of Carlos Correa, maybe give him a bag of chips in return, maybe a little bit more, then you could possibly get that deal done. You can see the difference in costs here. So that's kind of my issue there with Tucker and how the Yankees should be looking more at what the Mets are doing, building through free agency, using the pocketbook of Steve Cohen, doing the same thing and realizing, hey, these free agents don't cost me anything to bring them in aside from money. I don't have to mortgage my future to add to my roster. So that's why I think free agency is the better way to go, especially with so many pieces still out there that would solve the needs that they have on the roster right now. Welcome in, Mass. Cubs are showing interest in Pete Alonso. Cody is not getting traded this winter. Cubs might stand pat, so maybe sign pitcher. I think Cody Bellinger is going to get traded. I would say by the end of the week. I think they're trying to offload a little bit of salary here, primarily because they want to add some starting pitching and then a couple of hitters as well. Pitching seems to be where their front office is focused on, but the rest of the world kind of sees the issues that they had offensively. They tried to blame it on the wind blowing in Wrigley too much last year, and that's why their offense was down to 29th at home last year. That way their numbers will be up next year because the wind won't blow in as much. They still need to improve. Kyle Tucker would be a clear improvement for them. Paredes, I think, being there another year is going to be a significant boon for them. But I would rather go in free agency as well. But I get the reasons why they're trying to bring in a star in Kyle Tucker because they don't have one right now. But as far as Bellinger goes, it sounds like the market is moving on Bellinger. It sounds like the Yankees are now the front runner, and I would not be surprised if that one gets done very soon. Yankees are interested in Pete Alonso as well, sure. I think the Mets are the clear front runner there, though. It's more about the number that's going to take to be able to re-sign Pete Alonso. If Juan Soto had not signed with the Mets, I would say that the thought process for Pete Alonso is to try to maximize his dollar, and his dollar probably would have been worth a little bit less to the Mets at that point because they aren't quite as good of a team without Juan Soto. I'll put it that way. With Juan Soto coming in, now they're trying to build a championship contender. He goes from, say, asking for 5 at 125 to asking for, say, 5 at 135, 140. Try to bump up his value. Remember, first basemen don't really get paid in free agency, and we'll see what his number turns out to be. Walker is available out there. Trade targets include Yandy Diaz. Nathaniel Lowe could be a target as well. And there's a few other teams looking for first baseman. There was talk about the Mariners being a team that would be a great fit. I've yet to hear of any rumors connecting the two, though, as far as meetings, etc. But, I wouldn't rule that one out either. But for me, the Mets are clearly the favorite for Pete Alonso. Yankees should give up Nestor and Stroman for Bellinger. That's a couple of starters there. The Cubs are looking for some starting pitching. Not a bad idea. I just think the money on Stroman would be a little bit of a deterrent, kind of a net neutral there for them to lose Bellinger, the money, etc., and then take on more money with Stroman. But Cortez, I think, would be a good option for them. But Bellinger, I think, going to the Yankees, it sounds like where it's going to end up going. Have I heard anything on Santander? As far as his market is all of the AL East teams, the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Yankees were supposedly in there. We got reports today anyway that they are not interested in Santander. They want to go elsewhere at that corner outfield spot. So I would not expect him to sign there. Dodgers have a certain level of interest, but it sounds like their primary focus is Teoscar Hernandez. If I had to guess a team for Santander, it would be the Blue Jays right now, because I think they're going to be the one left with a big bag of money with nobody to spend it on. We saw that how that worked out for the Giants for the last 5 years with Farhan Zaidi. They would be left with a whole bunch of money to spend at the end of free agency, and so they'd end up signing guys for 1 year plus an option or overpay guys. Michael Confortos of the world, the Carlos Rodons of the world, Blake Snell last year, and I think the Blue Jays might be stuck in that situation if they don't end up with Burns or Bregman here. So Santander, I believe, could be the guy, or could be going to the Toronto Blue Jays, be that guy that takes their money. Last I heard was with the Nationals. They are interested in him with the Washington Nationals. Nationals are also interested in Gleyber Torres as a third baseman, with Garcia still staying there at second. So remember how the Yankees tried to convince Torres to move to third base when they acquired Jazz Chisholm? He said, I ain't doing that. But maybe he's trying to drum up a little bit of business around his name because the Angels and Nationals are both interested. Both of those teams could use second or third baseman. Nationals more looking for a third baseman. But that's kind of the latest out of Washington. Texas is still looking for some relief pitching. Braves are looking for some starting pitching. Yankees looking for a couple of bats. Pretty much all the contenders right now are looking for relievers. Miami's looking to possibly offload Jesus Luzardo. Diamondbacks are looking to offload Jordan Montgomery. And the San Diego Padres are open to dealing a couple of their players, Luis Arraez and Dylan Cease being those two names that I would keep an eye out for there down in San Diego. Appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you're new here. We'll be live again this evening around 8 o'clock, so be sure to join us then as we recap the entirety of the winter meetings. Hopefully we'll get some activity around Bellinger, Tucker, maybe a trade of a starting pitcher as well would be nice. On the free agent market, Bregman and Burns seem to be the two that are most likely to go next. David Santander is smart. He would wait till the other bats are gone. Someone will be desperate. That's kind of what I'm making my point of with the Blue Jays, is that if they miss out on Bregman, Teoscar Hernandez goes to, say, goes to the Red Sox or to the Yankees or to the Dodgers. The Blue Jays have a bag full of money, and there's nobody else for them to really spend it on except for Santander. So I still expect him to do very well. He just may be the guy that's left with, without a home at the very end, because it sounds like Bregman is going to sign before him. Hernandez's market is a little further along than his as well. But thank you guys for joining us today. We'll be live again around 8 o'clock. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you guys this afternoon.